Welcome back, dear friends, to the Crimson Academy's course on the Advent of Divine Justice. This is part 2 of exploring the Advent of Divine Justice. In this section, dear friends, we will be covering paragraphs 1 through 3. The topics that will be covered are America's first 7-year plan, praise for the community, Bahá'í community versus wider society, and lastly, seizing any opportunity. Dear friends, let us read paragraphs 1 through 3 of the Advent of Divine Justice. To the beloved of God and the handmaids of the merciful throughout the United States and Canada, best beloved brothers and sisters in the love of Baha'u'llah, it would be difficult indeed to adequately express the feelings of irrepressible joy and exaltation that flood my heart every time I pause to contemplate the ceaseless evidences of the dynamic energy which animates the stalwart pioneers of the world order of Baha'u'llah in the execution of the plan committed to their charge. The signature of the contract by your elected national representatives, signalizing the opening of the final phase of the greatest enterprise ever launched by the followers of the faith of Baha'u'llah in the West, no less than the extremely heartening progress recorded in the successive reports of their National Teaching Committee attest beyond the shadow of a doubt the fidelity, the vigor, and the thoroughness with which you are conducting the manifold operations which the evolution of the 7-year plan must necessarily involve. In both of its aspects and in all its details, it is being prosecuted with exemplary regularity and precision, with undiminished efficiency and commendable dispatch. The resourcefulness which the national representatives of the American believers have, in recent months, so strikingly demonstrated as evidenced by the successive measures they have adopted, has been matched by the loyal, the unquestioning and generous support accorded them by all those whom they represent, at every critical stage and with every fresh advance in the discharge of their sacred duties. Such close interaction, such complete discharge of their sacred duties, such complete cohesion, such continual harmony and fellowship between the various agencies that contribute to the organic life and constitute the basic framework of every properly functioning Baha'i community, is a phenomenon which offers a striking contrast to the disruptive tendencies which the discordant elements of present-day society so tragically manifest. Whereas every apparent trial with which the unfathomable wisdom of the Almighty deems it necessary to afflict his chosen community serves only to demonstrate afresh its essential solidarity and to consolidate its inward strength. Each of the successive crises in the fortunes of a decadent age exposes more convincingly than the one preceding it the corrosive influences that are fast sapping the vitality and undermining the basis of its declining institutions. For such demonstrations of the interpositions of an ever watchful providence They who stand identified with the community of the most great name must feel eternally grateful. From every fresh token of his unfailing blessing on the one hand, and of his visitation on the other, they cannot but derive immense hope and courage, alert to seize every opportunity which the revolutions of the wheel of destiny within their faith offers them, and undismayed by the prospect of spasmodic convulsions that must sooner or later fatally affect those who have refused to embrace its light. They and those who will labor after them must press forward until the processes now set in motion will have each spent its force and contributed its share towards the birth of the order now stirring in the womb of a travailing age. Now, dear friends, let us explore these paragraphs. The first three paragraphs, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi expresses his feelings of irrepressible joy about the progress made by the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada in the first 7-year plan, and the generous support given by the community in supporting the National Assembly in its endeavors. A summary of the North American first 7-year plan and an outline of the heroic victories achieved in this plan by 1938, the time the beloved guardian wrote The Advent of Divine Justice. And dear friends, here I give us short definitions of irrepressible, means not able to be controlled or restrained. And the definition of joy, a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. So this is the feelings that the beloved guardian writing about to the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada. Not being able to control the restraint and a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. Here's a picture of joy. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi's first 7-year plan was his guidance for the North American believers to undertake a systematic response to the mandate they had received from His Holiness Abdul Baha in the tablets of the Divine Plan. Shoghi Effendi channeled the efforts of the North American Baha'is in the 1920s and the 1930s towards building the Baha'i administrative order and completing the exterior of the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette, Illinois. And here, dear friends, is a picture from an article that was published in May 6, 1920 in Portsmouth Daily Times. You can see Temple for Universal Worship planned at Chicago by Baha'i at Convention. And it says architect bourgeois model of the proposed temple. And here, dear friends, is a picture. This is the very first picture taken on the Chicago Temple steps after the completion of the superstructure, May 1st, 1931. So dear friends, here's some more major key points from paragraphs 1 through 3. The 7-year plan had 3 major goals. And despite the challenges of the Second World War, the goals of the plan were achieved by 1944. The National Spiritual Assembly established an Inter-America Committee in 1936 to coordinate teaching activities in Mexico, Central America, South America, and the islands of the Caribbean Sea. A schedule was developed to complete the external decoration of the temple within the course of the plan. And here, dear friends, is another beautiful picture of a house of worship. And you can see it says the concrete and iron structural skeleton of the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette, Illinois, in April 1931. And you can see some more construction photographs. So here's a temple construction photograph. And on the right, you can see gallery section, Baha'i House of Worship, exterior decoration completed, July 31st, 1939. And as mentioned, that was one of the goals of the 7-year plan. And here's a closer view of the completed gallery section, and you can see a temple model. Let's carry on, dear friends. The apparent challenges faced by the Baha'i community primarily demonstrate its unity and reinforce its inner strength. Also, the followers of His Holiness Baha'u'llah must be grateful for the interventions of a caring providence, whether it appears as a blessing or an affliction. The Baha'i community should be alert and prepared to seize any opportunities that arise from crises or victories to advance the Baha'i faith. So, let's explore America's first 7-year plan. The beloved guardian refers to the execution of the first 7-year plan undertaken by the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada in 1937 under his care and guidance as the greatest enterprise ever launched by the followers of the faith of Baha'u'llah in the West. This endeavor represented the first systematic response by the North American believers to the mandate they received from His Holiness Abdul Baha in the tablets of the Divine Plan. As highlighted by the beloved guardian Shohreh Effendi, it was also the first systematic teaching enterprise in the West, launched to expand and consolidate the Baha'i faith. The greatest enterprise ever launched by the followers of the faith of Baha'u'llah in the West. It's the first 7-year plan at that point in time. It would require 16 years of nurturing by the beloved guardian Shohreh Effendi before the spiritual seed sowed by His Holiness Abdul Baha during his journey to North America in 1912 developed into the capacities necessary for the American Baha'i community to discharge the mission conferred on them in the tablets of the Divine Plan. At the time of the launch of the 7-year plan, there were 51 of the 62 states, provinces, and territories of the United States and Canada had resident Baha'is, most of whom were concentrated in or around big cities such as New York, Chicago, San Francisco. Of the 51 administrative regions inhabited by Baha'is, 34 had no local spiritual assemblies. Although the response of the North American Baha'is to the tablets of the Divine Plan was immediate, the initial progress was insignificant. The beloved guardian channeled the efforts of the North American Baha'is in the 1920s and 1930s towards building the Baha'i administrative order and completing the exterior of the Baha'i House of Worship at Wilmette. The size and diversity of the community increased during this period. These developments prepared the community to take up the challenge of pursuing a systematic plan in 1937. So not only did the community grow in size, it grew also in diversity. The 7-year plan, dear friends, had 3 major goals. The opening of every republic of Latin America to the Baha'i faith through the settlement of pioneers. Goal 2, completion of the exterior of the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette, Illinois. And third, establishment of at least one local spiritual assembly in every state in the United States and in every province in Canada. So these were the three major goals. And as mentioned earlier, it was achieved in 1944 due to World War II. So here is a message from the beloved Guardian, dated June 4th, 1937. And it says, the call has gone forth, the path is clear. It says, the responsibilities which under your direction and responsibility my plea, the American community is now assuming over and above the task they have already undertaken in connection with the divine plan, proclaiming in unmistakable terms their unswerving determination to prove themselves worthy of the sublimity of their mission and of their privileged position among their sister communities in both the East and the West. The twofold task they have arisen to perform will, if carried out in time, release the potentialities with which the community of the greatest name has been so generously and mysteriously endowed by Abdul Baha. To carry out in its entirety and to its final consummation this dual enterprise would shed on the closing years of this first century of the Baha'i era a luster no less brilliant than immortal deeds which have signalized its birth in the heroic age of our faith. To the American believers, the spiritual descendants of the heroes of God's cause, I again address my plea to arise as one soul and to prosecute with unrelaxing resolve the high mission with which their immediate destiny is inextricably interwoven. The call has gone forth. The path is clear. The goal manifest and within their reach. Through their responsibilities be pressing and heavy, and the obstacles formidable and manifold. Yet the spirit of our invincible faith will enable them to conquer if they arise unitedly and determinedly and persevere till the very end. See, Shori, postscript of letter addressed to the National Spiritual Assembly, and as mentioned, dated June 4th, 1937. So the community deployed three teaching methods, dear friends, three teaching methods to establish new home front local spiritual assemblies. The first, firesides. Second, teaching campaigns that were developed during the 1930s. And third, home front pioneering. Fireside teaching, most effective form of teaching. Here, this is from the beloved Guardian. It says, of all the ways of teaching, the Guardian said that the fireside method was the most effective. Here it is. This is from a letter written on behalf of Shobe Effendi. It should not be overlooked, however, that the most powerful and effective teaching medium that has been found so far is the fireside meeting. Because in the fireside meeting, intimate personal questions can be answered, and the student find the spirit of the faith more abundant there. We continue on America's first 7-year plan. World War II had a significant impact on the progress of the plan. So what happened? Transportation was disrupted. It was so difficult to acquire construction materials for the temple. And Baha'i pioneers had major problems to find housing in goal areas. So every aspect of the goals of the 7-year plan were disrupted. But what happened? Despite the challenges brought on by the World War II, the goals of the 7-year plan, as mentioned, were achieved by 1944. Local spiritual assemblies were formed in every province of Canada, every state of the United States of America, and in 15 Latin American cities. Also, the exterior of the house of worship was completed. Here you can see all goals won. Celebrate. In the opening paragraphs of the Advent of Divine Justice, His Holiness, the beloved guardian, praises the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada and its National Teaching Committee for pursuing the 7-year plan with exemplary regularity and precision, with undiminished efficiency and commendable dispatch. He also admires the community for the generous support they provided for the National Assembly to discharge their duties. Such statements reflect the devoted response that the North American Baha'i community and its institutions gave to the appeals and guidance of the beloved guardian Shoaib Effendi. Indeed, the response of the North American Baha'i community to the earnest request of Shoaib Effendi to pursue the goals defined by Abdul Baha in the tablets of the Divine Plan was swift and overwhelming. And here, dear friends, we see a picture. This is of the 26th Annual Convention of Baha'is of the United States and Canada at the Baha'i House of Worship in Wilmette, Illinois. The United States National Convention in 1936, and that was the picture I just showed you, received the following cablegram from the beloved guardian Shoaib Effendi. States, convey American believers abiding gratitude efforts, unitedly exerted teaching field, inaugurated campaign should be vigorously pursued, systematically extended. Appeal assembled delegates, power, historic appeal voiced by Abdul Baha, tablets divine plan, urge, earnest deliberation with incoming National Assembly, ensure its complete fulfillment. First century Baha'i era drawing to a close, humanity entering outer fringes, most perilous stage its existence. Opportunities, present hour, unimaginably precious. Would to God every state within American Republic and every republic in American continent might ere termination this glorious century embrace light faith Baha'u'llah and establish structural basis of his world order. And dear friends, this is the letter that was addressed to the convention, United States National Convention in 1936, from the beloved guardian. And this is how, interestingly, dear friends, is how Horace Holly, the secretary of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada, responds. He describes the upliftment of the North American Baha'i community upon receipt of the message from the beloved guardian. This is how he responds. From the hour when this message was presented, the American believers have made supreme and collective effort to rise to that world of action and complete consecration revealed in Abdul Baha's words. Their realm of responsibility has widened to include Mexico, Central America, the islands of the Caribbean Sea, and South America. A sense of intimate personal conviction has grown rapidly in the hearts. The feelings of crisis and challenge has galvanized the community. It has become realized that true faith means capacity for growth, that a passive and static acceptance of the Baha'i teachings is sterile and unacceptable. In response to the appeal of Shoghi Effendi, the National Spiritual Assembly established an Inter-America Committee in 1936 to coordinate teaching activities in Mexico, Central America, South America, and the islands of the Caribbean Sea. Various regional teaching committees were appointed in different parts of the United States and Canada to intensify teaching activities, particularly in goal areas. A schedule was developed to complete the external decoration of the Baha'i House of Worship at Wilmette during the course of the plan. During 1936 to 1937, Baha'i pioneers settled in 5 of the 12 virgin states and provinces of Nebraska, Wyoming, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and North Carolina. The faith was also introduced into 42 new cities, and travel teachers visited a total of 38 total cities. There were also 8 new local spiritual assemblies formed on Rizwan, April 21st, 1938, steadily increasing the number of assemblies in the United States and Canada to, at that time, 78. In addition, 82 new cities opened to Baha'i teaching activities in the period 1936 to 1937. You have a picture from strength to strength. The community is growing. In the second paragraph of the Advent of Divine Justice, the beloved guardian refers to the complete cohesion, unity, and harmony among various agencies of the American Baha'i community as the basic framework of every properly functioning Baha'i community. This was a remarkable contrast to the disruptive tendencies manifested in wider society. Shoghi Effendi then continues by making another comparison between the American Baha'i community and the wider society around it. The challenges faced by the Baha'i community primarily demonstrate its unity and reinforces its inner strength. On the other hand, each successive crisis afflicting society illustrates more clearly than the one before the destructive elements that are eroding its vitality and undermining the basis of its declining institutions. Crisis after crisis. In paragraph 2, the beloved guardian continues. He says he refers to the American society in the 1930s when it was moving from one crisis to the next. This is what I was talking about, crisis after crisis during this time. The stock market crashed on the 29th of October, 1929. At the beginning of the 1930s, more than 15 million workers were unemployed. Since people were not earning, they stopped spending, and the consumer society came to a screeching halt. The ordinary recession suddenly became the Great Depression. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected as the new president of the United States after he promised to change the life of all Americans. However, the Great Depression continued for another 9 years, and the crisis worsened. In 1933, more than 9,000 banks were closed and more than $2.5 billion in deposits were lost in the United States. As a result, workers grew more militant And by 1937, 8 million workers joined unions and violently demanded their rights. So this is a background of the time period. In the third paragraph, dear friends, the beloved guardian affirms that the followers of His Holiness Baha'u'llah must be grateful for the interventions of a caring providence, whether perceived as a blessing or an affliction, finding in either case a source of great hope and courage. So be grateful, whether it be what? Be grateful for the interventions of a caring providence, whether perceived as a blessing or an affliction. So whether it's a blessing or an affliction, still be grateful. Now, this is, I believe, our last slide. Might be, we'll see. But this is very important. So let's focus, dear friends. It says, the crisis resulting from these processes will sooner or later fatally affect those who refuse to accept the revelation of Baha'u'llah. At the same time, such crises would create fresh opportunities for the expansion of the faith. Baha'is should be ready to seize these opportunities and to press forward. Baha'is should be ready to seize these opportunities and to press forward. So, dear friends, we need to seize these opportunities. We should seize the moment, as it says. The revelation of Baha'u'llah has set in motion a series of processes. And this, dear friends, will be explored in much greater detail in parts, I believe, 23. Part 23 of this 24-part course over the advent of divine justice. So the revelation of Baha'u'llah has set in motion a series of processes with destructive and constructive effects on the world. So destructive and constructive effects on the world. Baha'is should persevere in their activities until each of these processes has exhausted its energy and contributed towards the birth of the order which is now growing in the womb of this age. Baha'is need to persevere, never give up. Persevere, never give up. That's right. And here, this is from the beloved guardian, Shore Effendi. And as you can see, this is a letter written to the National Spiritual Assembly dated July 28, 1936. And he says, I am eagerly awaiting the news of the progress of the activities initiated to promote the teaching work within and beyond the confines of the American continent. The American believers, if they wish to carry out in the spirit and the letter the parting wishes of their beloved master, must intensify their teaching work 1,000-fold and extend its ramifications beyond the confines of their native land as far as the most distant outposts of their far-flung faith. The tablets of the divine plan invest your assembly with unique and grave responsibilities and confer upon it privileges which your sister assemblies might well envy and admire. The present opportunity is unutterably precious. It may not recur again. Undaunted by the perils and the uncertainties of the present hour, the American believers must press on and prosecute in its entirety the task which now confronts them. I pray for their success from the depths of my heart. Signed, Shori. So here we see, seize the opportunity now. And dear friends, that was our last slide. So dear friends, this concludes part 2. Excellent. We will pick up on part 3